Several past church presidents in this congregation today and chairperson of the 2016-17 Ministerial Search Committee. Welcome to all of you to First Unitarian of Memphis as we celebrate the installation of our new minister, the Reverend Samuel Cullen Teitel, who was called unanimously by our congregation almost to the date 1 year ago on Sunday, May 7th, 2017. Since his arrival in August, we have grown to love Reverend Sam and his wife, the Reverend Sandra Summers, and to appreciate his many talents and leadership. Your presence today has made this event a memorable experience for Reverend Teitel and for this congregation. If anyone needs a large print version of the hymnal or an assisted hearing device, please inquire with our ushers who are located at the entrance of the sanctuary at the top of the stairs. We are also delighted that you have joined with us for this installation service, and we hope that you will please attend the reception held in the Mississippi River Room just across the patio immediately after the installation service. Once again, a warm welcome to you.
This is the day that we have been given, imbued with the down deep freshness of spring. It is a gift to us. We did not create it or earn it. It comes without our desiring. And regardless of our circumstances in life, this day is ours to seek the good thereof. Let us therefore rejoice and be glad in it. As we rejoice in the call of Sam to the ministry, as we rejoice in Sandra, Sam's partner in ministry and in love, as for invoking the Holy Spirit, we need not do so, for I swear to you, it is already present in us and among us. So it is that we rejoice in this day, made sacred by our promise to live in covenant beyond belief and through love, and blessed by the bond of minister and of congregation, walking together in right relationship for the growing of their souls. So may it be.
As we light this chalice flame, let us recall our ancestors, the great cloud of witnesses surrounding and blessing this occasion. May this light warm and brighten our connections here today and guide us in the sacred work we are about to do. Hi, I'd like to invite anyone here who is in high school, the youth group, in school or preschool, Sunday school. And actually, I'd like to invite Reverend Sam. Right, now, Sam, children, I wonder if you could stand up and make, it's not going to be a circle here, it's going to be kind of an oval. Can we make like a big oval around Reverend Sam? Think of him as like the monkey in the middle. Oval. I need everyone to be a part of this. Okay. You want to be in that part of the oval? No. Okay. Well, thank you. You witness and watch. Okay. It's an important job. Okay. Now, an installation is a weird thing. I mean, Reverend Sam's been around for a while. And it's kind of like, think about it, you're installing a new air conditioning system. We've been testing it out a while, and now we're like, oh, it's installed. We got the final things in that work. And everybody gets to breathe that fresh air, right? All of us, everyone here gets to breathe that fresh air. So, but we're going to actually use a little different air freshener kind of image. The oldest air fresheners around here are the trees, right? So I want you to all think tree. Can you do that? Can you all think tree? Think about roots going down into the grass. You can't see that. Half the trees on the ground. So think about that. Half of you is on the ground. Imagination. You can't imagine that. Okay. Then, what do people do when they sing you out the church school nowadays? Do they raise their hands up like this and blessing? Could you all do that? But face him. But pretend you're blessing, but you're also tree branches blessing him. So you're still trees, right? Because all together, we're making this air and spirit flow through it fresh and cool and lovely. Okay, so do you mind if I bless him now on behalf of all of us? Okay. All right. You are beloved. He, and I'm going to just add this, because he's a part of your beloved community here, isn't he? And so, you welcomed him. So I know he's beloved in this room, in this circle, in this oval. Okay, so, next blessing. You are our minister. You are our minister. He is like one of the bigger trees, one of the big trees here that reaches out and brings in that fresh air and is rooted. It's kind of a tree of life in this little park here that we have inside. Now, this last one, we're kind of blessing, you're kind of blessing each other. You will nurture us. You will nurture us. Just think where all these trees grow, and in between the branches reaching out of the ministry of this church, and the roots going deep of the ministry of this church. And Sam, Reverend Sam represents that for all of us. Now, If you want to put your hands down, you've got a good workout, you can. Because at this time, I know you all helped make a tree of life with one of the artists in the church, and we would like to give that to Reverend Sam on your behalf right now, so he's going to remember this blessing that you all blessed. All of the children and youth worked on some of the circular images there that became leaves and became part of this collage of this beloved community. So we can all remember that you are all together ministering in the tree of life. And it is time to listen you all out to those of you who are going to church. Good morning.
What a wonderful inspiration by your children. It was delightful. It is my great, great pleasure to bring you greetings from the church that I serve, your Sibling Church, Neshoba Unitarian Universalist Church, out by Shelby Farms Park in Cordova. Many of our parishioners would have liked to have been here today, but it is Flower Communion at Neshoba, one of the most beloved of our annual worship services, and they are observing that ritual this morning. They are very much here with you in spirit, however. It seems a good time to tell you of a quote by comedian Dana Carvey, who said, "I know it's a cliche, but the whole family is just whacked." I mean, we're all out of our minds. They are the funniest, most eccentric, bizarre people I have ever known, my siblings. Some people would say that describes Unitarian Universalists pretty well. And so from your funny, crazy siblings to the east, we welcome you, Sam and Sandra, with warm and full hearts and abundant excitement about the shared ministry here in the Mid-South. May your time here in Memphis and at Church of the River be richly blessed, and especially richly blessed. Sam has also asked me to introduce the offering. It is traditional that in services of installation and also ordination, a portion of the offering go to the UUA Living Tradition Fund. This fund assists ministers and retired ministers and their families, as well as religious professionals, congregational staff, and seminarians in times of emergency. It also grants need-based scholarships for theological students who have completed at least 1 year of seminary, and it assists new ministers burdened with high educational debt. It promotes and cares for professional, progressive, and liberal ministry. And it is a worthy fund in need of congregational support. Sam has chosen also to divide today's special offering between the Living Tradition Fund and MICA, the Memphis Interfaith Coalition for Action and Hope. MICA is a community organizing group that includes churches, unions, social service organizations, and others, and has been forming in Memphis over the past year or so to address issues of social injustice systemically and at the root. A professional organizer, Greg Beluso, says, "You can build a habitat house, which is a wonderful thing, or you can find out why people cannot get loans for housing. You can tutor a child, also great, or you can find out why our schools are inadequately educating our children. You can visit prison inmates, or learn why the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world, mostly minorities and impoverished. And then you attack the problem at its root." Beluso, as the founder of Gamaliel Foundation in Chicago, has been helping us with this effort, and says it takes money and people and significant numbers of both to get the attention of local and state leaders to effectively address such problems as these. Micah has been working hard to build those resources, and both the Church of the River and Neshoba are among the 42 charter members of Micah. It also is an organization very, very worthy of our support. If you are writing checks, please make them out to First Unitarian Church of Memphis. The offering will be divided equally between these two funds. Please give generously as our offering is shared.
Well, some thanks are in order. First, the choir. You know, a good choir covers a multitude of preacher's sins. They're not all good, folks. I mean, so when you get in the car and you look at your partner and say, "Oh, the sermon wasn't that bad," but the choir, great. So thank you. Thank you also to our liturgical dancers. I don't know if they're here, they're home somewhere else, but that got me ready. That was incredible. Thank you also to Sam for this invitation to be in worship with you and to provide the sermon for today's wonderful occasion. And thank you to you for your hospitality. Last night I ate more than I should have. But I was fed. And that's a holy thing. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Our second reading comes from the second book of Kings in the Hebrew Scriptures. We're going to begin in the second chapter, starting in verse 1. Listen now for what this text might be speaking to you. Now when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven by a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way to Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." It was a minister, that's the funny part. Man, we get so bent, like, who's doing that? All right, back to these two crazy prophets. So they went down to Bethel. And the company of prophets who were in Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that today the Lord will take your master away from you?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." And Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So they came to Jericho, and the company of prophets who were at Jericho drew near to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that today the Lord will take your master away from you?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Be silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan." But he said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So the two of them went on. And 50 men of the company of prophets also went and stood at some distance from them as they were both standing by the Jordan. And then Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, and struck the water. And the water was parted to the one side and to the other, until the two of them crossed on dry ground. And when they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me what I may do for you before I am taken from you." And Elisha said, "Please let me inherit a double share of your spirit." And Elijah responded, "You have asked a hard thing. Yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it will be granted you. If not, it will not." And as they continued walking and talking, a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them. And Elijah ascended in a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha kept watching and crying out, "Father, Father!" The chariots of Israel and its horsemen. But when Elisha could no longer see them, he grasped his own clothes and he tore them in pieces. And he picked up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and he went back and he stood on the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen, and he struck the wall, saying, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" When he had struck the water was parted to one side and to the other. And Elisha went over. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, be present here. Bless that person who is called. And bless us, for we are called. Cannot do it without you. And so may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our rock, our strength, and our Redeemer. Amen. This is a story about inheritance. Amid the wild details of gangs of prophets and fiery chariots, we find a story about lineage, about receiving something only the past can give. This is a story about best friends, about a student and a teacher, about a parent and a child. This is a story about what we do after the fact, after everything changes. This is a story about a running river that once parted. And at the center of this story is dry land. When you read the Hebrew scriptures, you always have to pay attention to the dry land. You see, way back when, long before the chariots swooned for Elijah and Elisha, the Hebrew people crossed the Red Sea on dry land. Stuck between an army and a sea, the hope of the Hebrew people was waning and anxiety was rising. And so Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the water began to pile upon itself. And as the scriptures say, the Israelites went into the sea on dry land. The waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. This remains the paradigmatic miracle of Israel. It is proof of the promise that God is with them. We crossed on dry land, they tell each other. And 40 years later, a new generation of Israelites stood anxious on another bank of water. Across the Jordan River was their home, a longed-for place, a place of purpose. And so the priests hoisted the Ark of the Covenant upon their shoulders, and they walked into the middle of the river. And inside the Ark were the symbols of God's care and God's faithfulness, Aaron's staff, the stone tablets of Moses, and the pot of manna. And there, straining against the current, another miracle, the same miracle. The waters piled up. And as the scripture says, the priests who bore the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood on dry land in the middle of the Jordan River until the entire nation had finished crossing over. In this morning's story, the worst kept secret in the world is that Elijah is about to die. Well, not really die. He's about to depart. Elijah knows it. Elisha knows it. All these local prophets know it. But no one can really talk about it. So Elijah charts his course and just starts walking. And Elisha, his best friend and his apprentice, follows. And after gathering some gawkers, the two arrive at the banks of the Jordan River. And then Elijah takes off his mantle, his coat, his vestments, and he rolls them up, and then he slaps the water. And like the Red Sea did for Moses, like this same river did for the Israelite priests so long ago, it too parts. And as the scripture says, the two cross on dry land. Alone on the other side of the river, the two friends look at each other, and in a deeply tender moment, Elijah says, "What do you want?" I think Elijah could see the anxiety on Elisha's face. Elijah could sense the deep foreboding in his friend's posture. He looks at Elisha and he sees doubt. So much doubt. What do you want? Elijah asks. And Elisha responds, "Give me what you got. But more than you got. Give me double what you got." Now, Elisha is not being greedy. He's being honest. He feels ill-equipped. He doesn't feel ready. He is utterly unsure that he can live up to the standards that his master has set. And so he asks for more. He says, "I'm not a natural like you. I feel like a fraud. This stuff doesn't come easy to me like it does for you, and I can't do it by myself, and I don't have time to learn how to do this work. Because as soon as I cross that river, that community of prophets is going to look to me, and I am not ready." Sam, you've been in this church for almost 10 months. So you know the dirty secret of ministry by now. You know how unprepared we all are to be ministers. You have no doubt had those moments of anxiety where your fear has gotten the better of you, where you stared into the eyes of this congregation and felt unprepared to meet their needs, where you stood in this box and thought, "What in the world am I doing?" You have no doubt had those rubbernecking moments when you looked around and thought, "If I had what she had, if I had what he had, if I just had more, I could actually do this job." The truth is, none of us is ever really prepared for ministry. None of us has enough to do this work. Seminary was a necessary artificiality. It was just a facsimile. It's a training ground. But it is hardly the real thing. And even though our ordination councils find us fit, we know how much we don't know. How much we need to learn. Elisha asked for a double portion, hoping that it might finally prepare him for the ministry ahead. And I trust you know what this feels like. Because the world is bigger and more troubling than we can imagine. I am too often surprised by how surprised I am by the brokenness of the world. You think I would have learned by now. But my naivete combines with my privilege, and it has this anesthetizing effect on me. It's a potent cocktail. You're privileged. It dulls your ability to feel the pain of the world. And yet to do ministry well is to recognize all the new and all of the old monsters that are still stalking this world. And noticing the world is bound to tax even our most fertile theological imagination. All this noticing is bound to raise real insecurities in our lives. Who am I to try and lead this community amid the monsters? And what crazy group of pilgrims would listen to me? Anxieties of ministry are real. And I can't tell you that they ever will go away. They haven't. I still tremble as I step into those bonds. And the temptation in the face of these anxieties is to pretend that we are more than we are. Yeah. Pretend that we have answers that we don't. And so we lie. Preserving our authority instead of our integrity. But let us never get accustomed to this authority. To being the sage, the prophet, the preacher. Because we need anxiety. If only to temper our authority. Like Elisha, we need to feel the anxiety, especially in matters of life and death. Demigod Toni Morrison tells a story about life, death, and authority. She says, on the outskirts of town there lived a blind seer. An old woman with special powers. A witch, a griot, shaman, a holy one. And one day, a group of young ones, adolescents, they knock on her door with a test. And they say, old blind woman, in our hand is a bird. Is it living or is it dead? They snicker. And the old woman smiles. She answers, I don't know if the bird is living or if it's dead. I just know that it's in your hands. That's a pretty good story. It's a nice answer. Life and death, its joys and all that, Thanks. But this is Toni Morrison. She doesn't stop there. Because she herself is a holy one, a sacred bard, a griot. Her lesson isn't finished. just background. Morrison asks of this bird story, what if it was a sincere question? This question of life and death. What if the world had never taught these young ones how to tell the living from the dead? What if the years of living in a world too committed to battleships, to bump stocks, to border walls, meant that our children were reared with a degraded picture of life? What if our twisted love affair with redemptive violence had convinced the world to put its hope in mutually assured destruction? What if our security was assured by threats of violence? What if we have more faith that our missiles will launch before there's land than we do in a living God? Morrison asks, what if this is a sincere question? Is it living or is it dead? How can we expect our children to even know, given the circumstances? Hold blind one, Morrison pleads. Reach out and touch the bird. Forget the shallow bromides, the pithy wise sayings. Touch the bird. Forget your status as the wise one. Subvert your own authority and tell them about the shape of life. Tell them what it feels like. Tell them how to sense the warm flow of blood. Then tell them how to preserve it, how to love it. Nurture their instincts. Rear them in their righteous anger. Give them confidence so that they settle for nothing less than abundant life. Steal their imaginations so that their own anxieties won't colonize their lives. Old wise one. Show them how to cope with the holy and difficult task that comes with holding a bird in your hand. See, it's best we don't get too accustomed to our authority. The anxiety is not something to run from. It's not something we battle or ignore. It's something we wear, like a mantle. Something we converse with, something we befriend. And only when it begins to hobble our imagination, when it begins to destroy our morale, when it steals our energy, that is the moment when we remember driving. Because Elisha sees a heavenly vision, something totally magnificent. Fiery horses and chariots swinging low to carry Elijah home. And Elisha screams out of terror or joy or awe. It's really hard to tell which. But after Elijah has totally vanished, Elisha crumples to the ground in agony. He rips his clothes. What a sight. The prophet of God, alone and naked, tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed with grief and anxiety. So what do when you are naked and alone on the wrong side of the Jordan River? Well, first, you get some clothes because it's hot and dusty. The only clothes left are Elijah's. So he grabs Elijah's mantle and he walks to the bank of the Jordan River, and then he rolls up that mantle and he cries out, "Where is God?" And then he slaps the water, and just like Elijah did, and then the waters part. And Elisha crosses over on dry ground. Just like the Hebrews at the Red Sea, just like the Israelites, the waters part for Elisha like they have for generations before. The faithfulness of God has not waned. Where is God, Elisha? Strange question to ask as your feet touch dry land. In times of great anxiety, it's hard to see the presence of the divine in our midst. Hard to notice all of the waters that have been parted for us to get us where we are. All of the times when a way was made from no way. Here on this day of installation, let me remind you that you wear a mantle of those whose faithfulness has parted waters. You carry upon your shoulders the great communion of saints in your tradition. They showed you that waters could be parted. And they have been faithful to model what it looks like to stretch out a hand or to carry the past upon their shoulders or to pass on their mantles. And they have been faithful in this task of ministry, and they are in this room in body, in spirit. And their work was hard as hell, but worth it. You have inherited a tradition that tells you that the barriers you meet are no reason to stop your pilgrim journey. Don't stop. Press on. Even amid the impossible. Be bold, even amid the impassable. Because this great communion of saints has already taught you much. They have showed you what it's like to part waters. Be assured that you too can walk on dry land, just like they did. But even more than that, Sam, you can literally wear the mantle of a woman who showed you that dry ground was impossible. Yeah. She passed through many waters, and like Elijah showed Elisha, she has shown you. Elisha cries out, Father, Father. And you've married a partner who is committed to joining you on your travels on dry ground, and you have friends and colleagues who, like the Israelites' priests, stand shoulder to shoulder with you as you all part waters. And I trust you have a community here who will follow you and you assure them that dry ground is possible. But know this as well. The power to walk upon dry ground is not in the mantle or the heavy ark or the outstretched arm. It isn't magic. Dry ground is made possible by the faithfulness of God. Because we may not be equipped to do this holy work of ministry, because most days it's hit or miss. But God is faithful to take our work and make it whole. God is faithful to meet us in our anxieties and bring us comfort. God is faithful to open up opportunities that are more beautiful than any single dream we could envision. We don't part water, God does. Thank God. God is present in our ministries. Elisha asks, where is God? And the answer always is closer than you think. There's an old slave spiritual that I love called Poor Pilgrim of Sorrow. It's a beautiful song, this deep inherent theology of lament and hope and joy. And there's this line that I need to hear most mornings when I step into the pulpit. In the song, the assurance of God rings out. God says, Poor pilgrim, I am always nigh. God's answer to Elijah's question. So this morning, I wrote this line of the spiritual on a card, and with humility and a bit of hubris, I have taped it into your pulpit. And I know as well as any the danger of messing with another preacher's pulpit, okay? But let it stay for myself. Just for a little while. Until you don't need to hear it anymore. Until you feel confident that God is here. Until that mantle rests naturally upon your shoulders. Because God is here. And so are the ancestors. Just keep it here until you know that in this church, by the river, whenever you walk into this pulpit, Sam, you stand on dry ground. Blessings to you in your ministry and to this church in its mission. Amen. Amen.
behalf of the search committee, with deep appreciation and gratitude, we present to you a stole that has been uniquely designed for you as the minister of the Church of the River. And especially, I'd like to say, there's a lot of emphasis on the word gratitude there. We are so happy that a young Boston hipster, who also happens to be one of the most promising young ministers in our denomination, that you would choose to come to Memphis to be our leader along the journey that we are choosing for ourselves. We trust you to wear it in good health as you lead us.
Will you pray with me? God of our ancestors, God of Elijah and Elisha, God of Martin Luther King Jr. and Toni Morrison, God of all the saints who founded this church, I ask your blessings on my friend Reverend Sam and the Church of the River. May your love and support and spirit wash over them like the flowing waters of the river of life. May those blessings be steady and persistent, and wrap them gently like a soft meandering current. May those blessings also be urgent and powerful, pushing them to their limits, flooded with the overwhelming power of your love. Let them trust that in you, everything will live where the river flows. May Sam see your blessings in the history and the people here. May he see your blessings in the support of colleagues, family, and friends. May he find the strength to be pastor as much as prophet. May he trust in you when he doubts himself. Guide him continually, especially in the parched places of ministry. And may your presence be for him like a watered garden and a spring that never fails, so that out of his heart may flow rivers of living water. May the Church of the River see your blessings and guidance in Reverend Sam's inspiration, enthusiasm, kindness, compassion, and unwavering commitment to justice. May they hear your voice in his preaching and feel your arms around them in his presence and counsel, so that out of their hearts may flow rivers of living water. Sam, congregation, may the Spirit give life to your collaborative work for the mission of God in the world. Minister together with hope and courage, proclaiming to Memphis, come, all who need to hear good news. Come, all of you who are thirsty. Come, whoever you are, and take the waters of life as a gift. Great and loving God, may Sam and the Church of the River be a power of love in the world that is a sign to all people that everything will live where the river flows. And we say, Amen. Amen.
Today we also gather to rededicate ourselves to the values of this church community and to the values of the Unitarian Universalist tradition. Sam, we have called you to serve us as our minister, to live among us, to make our concerns your concerns, and to lead us in the paths of understanding, justice, compassion, and peace. Mindful of the great traditions of our heritage in this church, and mindful of its vast promise, we look to you for moral leadership, for religious insight, and for spiritual guidance. We would have you speak the truth to us in love and freedom, without fear, minister to us in our joys and sorrows, and to lead by example, not less than by your precept. Do you accept the invitation of this church to its ministry?
I do, trusting not in my own strength, but in the strength of God who inspires and sustains me.
In recognition of our election of Sam and of his acceptance, I ask the members of this church to rise in body or in spirit and say with me, we, members of the First Unitarian Church of Memphis, have chosen you, Samuel Teitel, to be our minister. We offer you a congregation eager to work for love, justice, and compassion in our world and in ourselves. With confidence that you share our deep, abiding love for this congregation and for the values that it holds dear, we offer you blessings from all of that which is sacred to us, and we welcome you into our midst as our minister.
Mindful of the privilege and responsibility which are mine as minister of this congregation, I do accept this honor and position and pledge my consecrated efforts on behalf of this congregation, its members, and the free religious tradition which we hold dear.
Then, by the power vested in me as president of this congregation, I do hereby install you, Reverend Samuel Cullen Teitel, as the 11th minister of the First Unitarian Church of Memphis, Tennessee.
As some of you may know, May 4th is celebrated as Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Well, we're a couple days late, but in a sense, this next element of Reverend Sam's installation is a communal blessing of the Force on Sam. In a moment, I will invite Reverend Sam to kneel and then call forward those who are closest to him to place a hand on his arm, back, or shoulders. And then I'll invite everyone to come forward and put a hand on the person in front of you. What this will do is create a web. We will literally be connected one to another through the whole congregation. I love this ritual because it makes visible what we talk about, this connection. We will literally be connected. And as Sam kneels, the energy and love of this web will be directed through all of you, all of us, into Reverend Sam. It's a tangible way of affirming your choice of Sam to be your minister. And I also like that it requires all of us to get out of our seats, to rise up and take action together, because this too is a symbol of the church. We don't just sit back and watch Reverend Sam up front, no. We actively reach out to each other and to Reverend Sam to be the church in action. So now let us move into action. Sam, will you please stand? And I invite Reverend Sam's family, those who love and care about him and support him in this work. And then Reverend Sam's colleagues, those who walk with Sam with the mantle of this work. And then everyone, please come forward, move into the aisle, put a hand in front.
Let us join together in prayer. Let us join together in prayer, friends. Let us join together and keep breath together. God of light and love, God who flows in us and among us, force that connects us through our hands and our hearts to Reverend Sam and the people of the Church of the River today. And our connections remind us that the work of ministry is not a solitary undertaking. Help us to see that all in this room hold and share that responsibility of seeing that this ministry partnership brings more love and justice into our broken and weary world. The connections that we feel today that remind us of all who have passed through here, through these doors, and through this city. Those who have come here looking for comfort, looking for healing, looking to be changed. Those who have been warmly welcomed, and those who have felt marginalized and shunned. Spirit of life, let their presence remind us that the fight for justice is never over and never easy, and it requires this web of community and support to forge ahead into the unknown. So God of many names, let us be reminded here, and let Reverend Sam be reminded here that today he must do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with his God. And so let us all say together, let the people say together, Amen. Amen.
Please return to your seats.
So, now is the time in the service that I need to talk about curtains, window treatments, harnesses, rod pockets, swags, balances, and jabots. You see, my dad is a drapery installer. Installing beautiful curtains and window treatments in clients' houses. And every now and then when I was growing up, I used to go on installations with him. It was a process, measuring the windows weeks before, designing the fixtures that my mom and him would make, manufacturing the window treatments themselves, mounting them to the wall, double-checking his work, taking a few photos to show the designer that it did work, and then cleaning up any of the dust that he made during the installation. When my father would come to the end of an installation, he'd usually shake hands with the homeowner or the interior decorator and say, "The installation is finished. Call me if you need me, if you have any challenges." And of course, afterwards, they talk about charges and the fees and such. So from exchanging packets, Skype interviews, a pre-candidating weekend, the job interview by potluck, that is candidating week, the vote to call you as minister, and now this installation. This ministry is nearly fully installed as well. So naturally, now we need to shake hands. The task that Sam has asked me to take part in is what is known as the right hand of fellowship. It is a ritual that dates back to the beginning of the church. Some say that Paul was the first recipient of it as a way to connect Paul to Jesus, despite the fact that they never met. Whether or not this is important today is a whole other thing. It's also mentioned in the Cambridge platform as a way to connect church plants that were spun off back to their parent churches. But my handshake is not just mine. It is symbolic of the bond that you have to all of your colleagues, interfaith, Unitarian Universalist in Memphis, in the Southwestern chapter of the UU Ministers Association, in the country, and perhaps in the world. So because of that, I'd like to ask all of your clergy siblings to come forward as they are able and to stand behind us. I didn't quite know the dimensions, so we'll make this work. This is the connection that my handshake represents. Sam, we welcome you, and we are here for you. We have your back. Anytime you text or call us with a, "Hey man, you got a second?" We will. We'll have more than a second. Anytime you need a policy emailed to you, we'll try to make that happen. We will be here for you. We care about you and your ministry, and we want it to succeed. Please talk to us, even when you don't need help. We often don't know how things are going in our individual churches. We will be here for you too when you're not being your best self, when you might be, we'll say, wandering out of covenant. We'll call you back into covenant. And Sam, please be here for us as well. We need one another to survive and thrive in ministry. So the Reverend Sam Teitel, settled minister of the First Unitarian Church of Memphis, you are installed. I am honored and pleased to give you the right hand of fellowship. We're here if you need us, or if you don't, please call.
I never get tired of calling them. So now that you're all installed, there's a part of this ceremony that includes a charge to the minister. And that is a task given to a colleague to talk about what a colleague newly installed should keep in mind. I'm going to take a little privilege because because I am not only a colleague, but Sam's godmother. And I've been telling Sam what to do for quite some time. So first of all, congratulations are in order for you and to this congregation to which you are newly bound in covenant. Covenants are no joke. They are the promises we live by. They are the biggest promises we make in this life. They're like the death do us part marriage covenants and the lifetime promises inherent in having children. They're the ride or die friendships, like the one your mother and I had. Mary and I spent a lot of time driving around in cars with Sam in the back seat. And so you spent a lot of time in the back seat of the car listening to your mom and I talk about ministry when we thought you were asleep. And even with all you heard, you still decided to come. And so today we celebrate this very particular promise between you and your people to walk together, to serve one another, to do your part of the great work that is beloved community. And so I want to tell you the thing I think you need to do. You already know them, but I'm going to tell them anyway. I charge you to love your people. It feels so easy today. It's such a happy day. It's such a beautiful day outside. You get to look at the river. It's a beautiful moment. You're wearing your brand new stole. It's great. But every day will not be like this day. There are people in this room who are going to get on your very last nerve. There are people in this room who will be unkind to you. There are people in this room who will fight you tooth and nail as you work with them to cast a vision for this community that you all share. And in spite of all that, you have to love your people, Sam. As ministers, love is a choice that we make. A commitment to love those whom we serve, even when we don't like them, even when they hurt us. To do this, to truly love them, and to continue to love them, there are things you have to do for yourself, and there are things you have to do for them. So I charge you to keep your self-respect, Sam, and guard your heart. Guard your heart and your mind from people who are negative and have nothing good to say. There are lots of ways to do that. You heard your mom and I talk about them often enough. You need to find a therapist and see them even if you think nothing's wrong. You need to pray without ceasing so that God is familiar with your voice and you are familiar with hers. You need to never act or accept an anonymous comment about anything. Make it a principle of your ministry. There will always be people who want to approach you with what some people say, but only you can insist that each person speak for themselves. These are things that you must do to keep your heart open, free, and able to love them. Finally, I charge you to do something that will grow tougher to do over time. You must speak the relentless truth from that home, again and again and again. You must do it because you owe it to them. You owe them the truth. As ministers, we are called out from among the people to help a community understand itself, to understand its relation to God, to understand its unique mission in the world. To meet that challenge, your congregation needs and deserves your vision of these times we are living in, these desperate, dangerous times. They need your clarity and they need your humor. They need your passion and they need your irreverence. Most of all, they need a vision of life passed through the fire of thought. You know where that comes from. That's Emerson. They need that even if they happen to find it inconvenient. Everything we love and believe in as progressive people of faith is in peril at this moment. And some people are tired, and some people are afraid, and some people wish you would find something else to talk about. And sometimes you will. But you owe them more than that. You owe them the relentless and unvarnished truth, delivered in love, as your mother would, but delivered. May all these things guide you, Sam, as you and your people journey together in fulfillment of this promise that you have made together, and in fulfillment of the larger call laid upon your heart much longer ago than this moment, from when you were a small child. I love you. I'm proud of you. I wish Mary were here, but she isn't. God bless you, baby.
What an honor to be asked to be part of Reverend Sam's installation, specifically to give the charge to the congregation. As I speak, you will think that Reverend Rosemary and I collaborate. We do not. Watch this. So, Sam, at this time in your life and in your work, it's just an honor and privilege to be a member of the staff of the Unitarian Universalist Congregational Life staff, and to work with you in the Church of the River as you fulfill your intentions for this community and beyond. Now, I know Sam Teitel. I know from whence he comes. I can vouch that everything he says or does in relationship to the Church of the River is in the interest of health and healing. I confer upon him in this moment a title that was extended to me many years ago by a beloved mentor and friend, and that is this. Sam is a technician of the sacred.
Come on.
He's where he is because your search committee saw his dedication, his prodigious gifts, his generous heart, his essential competence. In short, they saw the qualifications he had for this work, and soon those of you who voted for him as your minister did as well. Now we've heard several metaphors this morning. We've heard about trees and air conditioners and dry land and window treatments. Are you ready for another?
Yeah!
If you go to a medical office, now and then there's a technician, a doctor or a nurse, who will say just before an injection, you're going to feel a little prick. Now, there's a point with the prick, but the prick is not the point. The point behind the prick is what comes through it. The medicine that is going to help you feel better in the long run. Because you trust a highly trained, qualified medical technician working with you, you stay and take that shot rather than leave because you don't want to feel that pain. Reverend Sam is a technician of the sacred, here to promote your health and well-being. Sometimes you're going to feel a little prick. He's going to share some insights or some knowledge that doesn't feel so good. Every now and then, he's going to point out some things that you haven't seen and might not even want to see about the culture we live in and about yourself. In those moments, you might say, ouch! Let's practice that together now. 1, 2, 3. Ouch! Reverend Sam, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. I promise you, Reverend Sam knew that wasn't going to feel good, and that you weren't going to like it long before he opened his mouth. He might have even looked up to heaven and said, do I have to say that? Yes, sometimes a minister has to say things that are hard to hear. And Reverend Sam will try to make it as painless as possible, but just remember, on the other side of the pain is relief and healing, because he loves you, because he cares so deeply. And so that's my first charge to you. Trust him. Will you trust him? If so, say yes.
Yes.
Now, for my second charge to you, I implore you to love yourselves. I know that if you love yourselves, really love yourselves, the love you feel in your heart will be so big and strong that it will overflow, and you will also love him too. If you love yourselves and feel good about yourselves, so much of the rest will take care of itself. There is an existential fear inside the human experience, and none of us are exempt. When we act out of fear, we can behave in ugly ways. Because we are constrained through our five senses to what is happening in our own bodies, we can act in ways that are insensitive to the needs of others. That in itself is a fearful thing, to say or do something that might hurt another person. We feel bad when we're afraid, and may even despise that part of us that we don't want to own. And I'm saying to you, own the ugly. Own the ugly and the insensitive parts. Once you've owned them, love all of yourself. The parts that are ready to share with the world, and the parts that still need work. When you are loving, sympathetic, and vulnerable towards yourself, you can extend that to the people around you. Everybody in here is hurting. Everybody in here wants to be whole. Everybody wants to be respected and honored and loved. But it starts with you. You can only offer to others what is alive in you. You will make Reverend Sam's life easier every day when abundant, overflowing love is the default at Church of the River rather than the exception. So my second charge to you is to love yourselves. Will you love yourselves?
Yes.
Trust him. Love yourselves. May it be so. I invite you to rise in body and spirit and join in the singing of our closing. Hymn number 100. I got peace like a river.
Joy,
My friends, oh my friends, I love you all more than I could ever say, not in 100 years. I am grateful for today and grateful for today as culmination, but also as the beginning. For today as just the first part of the journey that we will go through together, through the rivers and the dry ground, and all that is in between, lifting each other up in love, with the love that we have for each other. Go. Look the world in the eye at its darkest, and so you see light. Go look the world in the eye at its ugliest, and so you see beauty. Go look yourself in the eye at your worst, and so you see that you are a beloved child of God. Go in peace. Amen.